West Africa Democracy Radio.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and Banjul, 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon and welcome to West Africa Democracy Radio. I'm broadcasting on 94.9 FM Dakar and around the world on WADR.org. This is NEWSLINK. Let's begin with our headline stories. Liberian President George Weah exposes election manipulation attempt by his government officials.
Exemplify what the entire world talks about: free, fair, transparent, inclusive, democratic, and that's what they exemplify. Those are hijacked elections, and innocent people die. I will not be part of it.
Dissolved Senegalese PASTEF party nominates Bassirou Diomaye Faye as a presidential candidate for the February 2024 election. Malian authorities revealed the uncovering of a mass grave in Kidal, and African heads of states to convene in Germany for the G20 Compact Summit. Details of these stories and more coming up shortly.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with NEWSLINK.
A warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, and Liberia. Will begin this edition of the bulletin. Now, President George Weah revealed that certain officials within his government made efforts to manipulate the 2023 elections, but he stood firm against such attempts. The electoral body is anticipated to formally declare opposition leader Joseph Boakai as the victor today, following Weah's concession of defeat a few days earlier. For more details, here is WADR's Darlington Popper.
Addressing the congregation during the November 19 worship service at the Foke Jara Fellowship Church, President Weah emphasized that he agreed to manipulate the election results, who have resulted into bloodshed in the country, a scenario he staunchly opposed. He expressed his decision to concede defeat in the paramount interest of maintaining peace and to convey to the world that the Liberian democracy is progressing in a right direction.
If I were to do the ordinary thing that black people wanted, exemplify what the entire world talks about: free, fair, transparent, inclusive, democratic, and that's what they exemplify. Those are hijacked elections, and innocent people die. I will not be part of it.
In a separate context, opposition figure Mo Ali commended the president for the decision to concede defeat even before the official pronouncement by the Elections Commission, highlighting it as a testament to the president's peaceful deposition. Mo Ali further announced the initiation of a government audit within the first 100 days.
That was a defining moment for our democracy, given that there was this huge anxiety. Many people had thought that there was going to be violence, that the president was not going to accept the results. There was a huge presence of security in the streets prior to the announcement of the results. And so that just calmed the entire country. And after he congratulated the president-elect, he went on in the night to address the nation. He also offered to work with the president-elect, to reconcile the country. I think it sets the stage, and that was one of the cardinal things that is needed to begin the reconciliation and the healing of the country.
Looking ahead, President Weah has pledged to hold the incoming administration accountable, vying to scrutinize their actions after relinquishing power in January 2024. For NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Popper in Monrovia.
Here in Senegal, the dissolved opposition political party, PASTEF, has selected and declared its second-in-command, Bassirou Diomaye Faye, as the party's presidential flag-bearer in the upcoming February presidential election. The decision was reached through consultations among party executives, and it received validation from the mayor of Ziguinchor himself, Ousmane Sonko. Following this election, Sadiq Top, a member of the former PASTEF communication pool, announced that the campaign to gather sponsorships on behalf of the chosen candidate will commence this Monday. Professor Musa Jao, a political analyst and lecturer at Gaston Berger University, weighed in on this situation, discussing the prospects of success for Bassirou in the absence of Ousmane Sonko from the election campaign.
Ousmane Sonko, c'est la figure emblématique avec un discours maîtrise.
Ousmane Sonko is the emblematic figure with a mastery of political discourse, innovative proposals, and the clarification of the political game to get off the beaten track and tackle the essential issues, be they political or economic, with regards, of course, to oil and gas resources. He proposed a path for economic and social development. On an ideological level too, he cleared the way for what was an important challenge for Africa, to emerge from its isolation by creating an African community with its own currency and with a degree of political and monetary independence. I think this speech will be taken up by Bassirou Diomaye Faye, who is a well-known leader, and you know the former PASTEF party was a force that was able to mobilize people, as we all see with the sponsorships. Bassirou Diomaye Faye will mobilize, that's obvious.
Bassirou Diomaye Faye va mobiliser, ça c'est évident.
Elsewhere, military authorities in Bamako revealed they uncovered a mass grave in Kidal, the former stronghold of armed independence groups. This revelation follows closely on the heels of the Malian armed forces gaining control of the town. The military hierarchy emphasized that this mass grave serves as a stark reminder of the atrocities perpetrated by terrorists. Authorities said they have initiated investigations to ensure that those responsible for this heinous act are brought to justice. Ogebirika has put in this report by our Bamako correspondent Ali Cham.
Malian Foreign Minister Abdoulaye Diop asserts that international media are attempting to manipulate information with the aim of influencing public opinion.
Information is a fundamental component of international relations. It is an instrument of influence, an instrument of power, of geostrategic or geo-economic positioning, but it is also an instrument of control and domination.
In a related development, Colonel Major Suleiman Dembele, the Armed Forces Director General of Information and Public Relations, states that this information is contributing to the destabilization of the military at the front.
Malian armed forces have been dragged through the mud by campaigns of intoxication and disinformation. A poorly structured army, a poorly trained army, and uncommitted army, all this contributed to demoralizing the troops.
Banjogo Dante, the president of the Maison de la Presse, emphasizes the necessity of creating the right conditions for the media.
Today, it's important to strengthen the national media. Strengthening the national media necessarily involves cleaning up the Malian media government, but the public authorities need to create the conditions that will enable these medias to flourish and do their job properly.
Following the panel discussion, solutions were put forth to counteract misinformation and empower journalists to produce high-quality content during times of war.
Ogebirika with that report filed in by WADR's Ali Cham in Bamako.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. NewsLink continues.
As a reminder, we are live on WADR.org. Nigeria's Attorney General and Minister of Justice Lateef Fagbemi underscored the federal government's dedication to aiding the battle against illicit financial flows and terrorism financing. Addressing the 40th General Assembly and Technical Session of the Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering in West Africa, Fagbemi emphasized the strides Nigeria has made in countering money laundering, terrorism financing, and related criminal activities. WADR's Usman Umar in Abuja reports.
Fagbemi has announced that the federal government will soon resume the prosecution of detained terror suspects, including those affiliated with Boko Haram. Plans are also underway to facilitate a smooth process that combines physical court trials with virtual settings.
It is incumbent on member states to provide all support that is necessary for GEVA to conduct its work in a more effective and efficient manner.
The Director General of GIABA, Edward Harris Jr., emphasized the importance of coordination and cooperation in combating money laundering, terrorist financing, and other transnational crimes. He called for a united effort to protect the economies of the sub-region and prevent adverse activities.
As a means of strengthening our MSCFC regime that holds criminals accountable, GIABA will start a critical conversation with member states and stakeholders in creating a regional sanction regime for the community that will seek to deny, block the movement of the proceeds of crime in the community and restrict physical movement of criminals, terrorist associates within the region.
Jeremy Whale, Vice President of the Financial Action Task Force, urged GIABA member countries to enhance coordination and the delivery of technical assistance and training to combat illicit financial flows and terrorism financing.
The Financial Action Task Force intends to strengthen the effectiveness and cohesion of the global network. We have started exploring ways in which we can enhance cooperation and collaboration between the FATF and FATF-style regional bodies such as GIABA.
The GIABA Technical Commission, comprising experts, representatives of member states, development partners, and observers, convenes twice a year to address challenges in implementing effective anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism measures. For NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar, reporting from Abuja.
And just before our recap, Ghana's Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is appealing for parliamentary support, particularly from the minority, to endorse revenue bills in the 2024 budget. He is cautioning against a recurrence of delays similar to those experienced with the passage of the Electronic Transactions Levy. The contentious levy resulted in the rejection of the 2022 budget by the House under the leadership of Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin. In his absence, First Deputy Speaker Joseph Osei-Owusu overturned the rejection. Addressing the opening ceremony of the post-budget workshop in Parliament, the minister urged the minority to avoid a replication of the e-levy situation, emphasizing the importance of considering the country's current circumstances. Ofori-Atta also specified that the government aims to generate 0.9% of GDP through the revenue bills set to be presented for approval.
Mr. Speaker, for us to move forward on this path towards stability and growth, we need your House and your partnership to get measures outlined across this budget through and in quick order. We acknowledge the hardship that has befallen us as a people, but we are not broken, even in an unprecedented period of such apocalyptic proportions. But we also identify a set of strict expenditure measures to ensure that we maintain a primary balance that is positive. Taken together, Mr. Speaker, I believe that we have turned the corner indeed. We are on track and it is rebounding, and the interest, therefore, is for all of us to move ahead. We are therefore calling on you to support us once again, like you have done in the past, to pass the proposed measures in the 2024 budget and on time. Mr. Speaker, there's a time and a season to tear and a time to mend. There's a time for war and a time for peace.
Ghana's Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, speaking there. You are listening to NewsLink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Liberian President George Weah exposes election manipulation attempt by his government officials. Dissolved Senegalese opposition political party PASTEF nominates Bassirou Diomaye Faye as presidential candidate for the February 2024 election. Mali military authorities revealed the uncovering of a mass grave in Kidal. Still ahead in the news, African heads of state to convene in Germany for the G20 Compact Summit. We also have the press review, guest interview, and some sports update. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Many thanks for staying with us. African heads of state are convening in Germany for the G20 Compact with Africa conference over the next 2 days. The conference's objective is to enhance private investment in the world's poorest yet rapidly growing continent. Reflecting a renewed interest in Africa, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, French President Emmanuel Macron, and Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte are among the prominent leaders participating in the summit in Berlin. Nadi Dititi completes the story.
The official event is scheduled to take place today, Monday, at the German Chancellery. It will be preceded by a press conference involving leaders from the African Union, which was granted permanent membership in the G20 in September. German government officials emphasize Africa's potential to play a pivotal role in helping Germany enhance supply chain diversification, secure skilled labor, mitigate illegal migration, and achieve its goals in green transition. According to experts, while European discussions often revolve around investment, African nations have historically criticized China for providing financing without moral guidance. However, Chinese lending in Africa is on the decline, and European interest is growing, particularly in the context of efforts to diversify supply chains. In the previous year, German trade with Africa amounted to 60 billion euros, a fraction of its trade with Asia, but a notable increase of 21.7% from 2021. A study by KPMG and the German African Business Association reveals that almost two-thirds of German companies express a desire to expand their business in Africa. The G20 Compact includes member countries such as Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, Senegal, Guinea, La Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, Togo, Benin, Burkina Faso, Rwanda, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Ethiopia.
Na Didititi reporting there.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Let's take you to Nigeria, where WADR's Usman Umar is standing by with major developing stories and headlines from the national dailies. Usman says the federal government of Nigeria seeks to unlock $1 trillion debt capital to end borrowing.
Hello and welcome to the press review segment. We have a number of national dailies to take a look at, but let's begin with the Daily Independent newspaper. Federal government looks to unlock $1 trillion debt capital to end borrowing. With the rider, analysts say Nigeria can earn enough from its asset. Appeal court sacks Plateau governor, declares APC's Goshwe winner. Federal government suspends OAU teaching hospital director, that is Obafemi Awolowo University Teaching Hospital, over job racketeering saga. Serap budget 34 others sue Tinubu for appointing APC loyalists into INEC. And finally, from the Daily Independent, 7 years after escape from prison, Nigeria Drug Law Enforcement Agency arrests Abuja drug kingpin. And, of course, recovery that was made, 63,767 kilograms of Indian hemp in 8 states by the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. And, of course, moving on, we have This Day newspaper. This Day newspaper is leading with the story, Appeal Court nullifies Mufwang's election, declares Nentawe winner. This is still coming from the Plateau State, where the PDP governor, his election was nullified by the Appeal Court, and of course the opposition party, that is the APC candidate, Nentawe, declared winner. A number of other stories. Let's take a quick look at the Leadership newspaper. The Leadership is leading. 25 years after, federal government may restore controversial Malabu oil well. Dutch Shell, Italian ENI favored to get mining license after years of dispute. Former Attorney General of the Federation Adoki seeks political exoneration. Petroleum Minister keeps mum. This is another developing story concerning the restoration of the controversial Malabu oil well in the oil-rich Niger Delta. It has been a controversial issue, but the details are on page 4 of the Leadership newspaper of today. And finally, before we take leave of this newspaper review segment generally, Nigeria, 26 others adopt HPV vaccine against cervical cancer. Police chief orders overage officers to retire. And finally, APC wants to make Nigeria one-party state. This is coming from the New Nigeria People's Party, which lost its only governorship seat in Kano State over the weekend to the All Progressives Congress, the APC. And this is the much we have for you on the press review segment today with me, Usman Umar from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. It's back to you in the studios.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Liberia's National Elections Commission NEC is expected to announce the final result from the November 14 presidential runoff election between incumbent George Weah and Joseph Boakai. Boakai will shortly be declared Liberia's president-elect after Weah considered defeat following tallied results by the Elections Commission. Since George Weah's statement over the weekend to his supporters and Liberians at large to embrace the new change, political experts and election observers in the country said calm now reigns following a period of tension that threatened Liberia's fragile peace. Moeba Johnson, an election observer, joins us from Monrovia.
Yeah, actually, from our perspective, I mean, the voters' perspective, we expected the president to make this current call, to take this decision, because I mean, there was no way he could catch up with the opposition leader, Mr. Joseph Boakai. Okay, given the numbers that were filtering in, you know, we even knew it before he even made that pronouncement, because one of our colleagues from the States has set up a beautiful, you know, electronic system by which they were tracking every vote that was being sent into the tally room. So it was known by the Liberian people that such decision was going to be made by our president.
Even though it was expected, but he had options, though, whether or not to do what he did. But I'm just saying that George Weah will be respected and forever cherished for this laudable move, right? I mean, it's a bold thing to do, to concede to defeat and actually believing that the peace of Liberia and Liberians far outweighs his political ambition.
Exactly. You know, the president, over the time from his football career, he has been known as peace icon. Even during the heyday of our civil war in Liberia, he was one of those Liberians that was counted upon to blow the trumpet of peace in our country, to the effect where, you know, he was even considered as peace ambassador. He was always mediating between the warring factions, and so that legacy, he wanted to uphold that legacy up to the end of his regime. And so there was no way he could do anything to jeopardize that image that he has already built for himself over time, you know. So it was but necessary that he just make this call.
Well, happily, President George Weah stood by what he was known for, a peace ambassador. But right about now, it's a new dawn, a new day, a new chapter in Liberia's political or democratic history. What are some of the challenges incoming President Joseph Boakai will have to address immediately, according to you?
Well, basically is to reconcile the country. You know, if you see, it was a razor team margin between the incumbent and the incoming president. Okay, so it tells quite clearly that the population is divided. And so there is a need now, the urgently in his 100-day program to bring together the aggrieved party and even the winning population to bring them together, because that's the only way you will succeed if you have a unified country. Other than that, it will give you a problem. Secondly, the expectation of the Liberian people, especially the working class, like I spoke to you the other time, the working class. There is a need. The incoming president lived up to his commitment by at least salvaging the wages of workers in this country, and to create that environment, an enabling environment, that workers will feel that indeed they have a government that is actually in their own interest and that will move them forward. Because I tell you this, as leader for workers in this country, okay, the marginalization that we have experienced for the past 5 years, okay, as well as the low salary, the low wages we've been encountering. It has brought to us a tremendous economic hardship.
Moiba Johnson is an election observer in Liberia. It's now time for some sports news with Sankule Janko.
Hello there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. The reigning African champions Senegal began their World Cup qualifying campaign in grand style after thumping South Sudan 4-0. Sadio Mane scored a brace as he celebrated 100 cap for the Teranga Lions. Elsewhere, Nigeria's 2026 World Cup qualifying campaign hit another blow after another 1-1 draw against Zimbabwe on Sunday in Rwanda. This follows the Super Eagles' home draw against Lesotho on Thursday, collecting only 2 points out of 6 after 2 matches in Group C. Zimbabwe took the lead after Walter Masone's strike before Kelechi Iheanacho equalized for Nigeria. The Super Eagles could be 4 points behind group leader South Africa, who will take on Rwanda on Tuesday. Egypt maintained their 100% winning streak after a 2-0 victory over 9-man Sierra Leone in Liberia thanks to Trezeguet's double. The Pharaohs maintained their perfect start after defeating Djibouti 6-0 in their opener. Sierra Leone finished the game with 9 men after Tyrese Fona and Abdul Kabir were sent off. In Group F, Algeria sit top of the piles as they maintained their perfect start to the World Cup qualifying campaign after a 2-0 away victory against Mozambique. Burundi lost 2-1 away to Gabon, who maintained their winning streak, while DR Congo edged Sudan 1-0. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
Sports was brought to you by Sankule Janko. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of NewsLink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Christian Mukidi and Mustafa Sek for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service, and stream live on WADR.org. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is our flagship health program, Well Body, with Oge Oberika talking vasectomy. And that will take us to the top of the hour of 1 p.m. when Alpha Abubakar comes live with the second edition of our news in French, Info Chez Vous. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to NewsLink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0, and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County. For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.